all day long at school is how great Marcia is at this, or how wonderful Marcia did that. Marcia, Marcia, Marcia.
It's not about spaceships.
Making Star Wars Show. Making Star Wars Show. Making Star Wars Show. Making Star Wars Show.
It's not about spaceships.
Hello, Internet.com. I'm Jason Ward from Suncoast Movie Store, your place for VHS videos and Laserdisc.
I'm telling you, if I could get a job there right now, I would. But they're gone.
Me too. Yeah, so I'm Jason Ward from MakingStarWars.net, and with me is my sketchy friend Rob, and my less sketchy friend, a more blue guy, Thronkill, Jesse.
Hello.
It's just like, hello.
Hey, how you doing? Good old Thronkill here. Yeah, staying up past bedtime.
Thrawn
I'm going to put off the matlock.
He's a geriatric anime character, as we were talking about.
It's Murder, She Wrote
a while ago. Yeah, right. So a bunch of Marcia Lucas stuff came out from the Rinsler book on it's on Kazanjian, right? I think it's on Kazanjian.
Yeah, Howard. I forgot his name was Howard.
Yeah, we call him Hojo. Hojo,
go stay at the Hojo. Yeah,
Hojo Kazan, Gian. Yeah. So they're making like a big deal about it. I just had a guy from like a Bigfoot Hunters show tweet me an image like, "I'll stand with Marcia, and I'm going to find the Bigfoot." And I was like, "Fuck, really? Okay." Yeah. Here it is.
Going squatching.
I'll stand with Marcia.
Going squatching. Can we do that? Where it's like at the Ghost Hunters, but we just have it's called going squatching. Like, we see the squatch. Y'all about down 20 yards down there. It was about 8 miles wide. It lit up the night.
My name is Jebediah Ward, and I'm here to break some news from 1983, and that's that Marcia Lucas had an affair with Squatch. And that's when George Lucas broke up with her. He could not ever have sexual relations with her again after she was impregnated by Squatch. You can't do it, man. You just can't do it. But yeah. So they're making a pretty big deal about it. And on one hand, it's only a big deal in the sense that Marcia Lucas kind of bounced. And I have a couple of theories, but I don't think anybody really knows. Rinsler probably knew. I honestly kind of feel like Rinsler might have been circling getting a Marcia Lucas book in there at some point. I had, This Earth Not Been Trash and
cruel.
Yeah. And so anyways, that would have been a fantastic read. And I hope, wouldn't it be awesome if there was like a draft of that somewhere around and some other film scholar finishes it or something. But and that's I don't know he was doing that. I'm just speculating.
When I sent you some DMs about this earlier in the day, I was like, Rinsler's last gift. Yeah. It's not that he got this quote or anything. It's that I just love how like, boom, have fun. Mm-hmm. like it's almost like the Rorschach moment in Watchmen where he just here's the journal, have at it. Because yeah, it's Marcia Lucas. It ultimately means little in the scheme of things. I mean, what was her feelings on the Phantom Menace? Would that have changed? I guess not. But we live in an interesting world now where it's more feasible. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but it's more feasible that Disney does get Marcia Lucas's involvement. You know what I mean? It's a very. I'm not saying it would. What I'm saying is, if I woke up tomorrow and the fucking headline was there, I would be less shocked by that than if it were actually George Lucas. You understand what I mean? Like, It's we live in a weird world. But the fact that she came out at all and said anything, I wonder, like, was she seething in the theater? Like, this is not what we, like, after all these years, this is the thing? Like,
this is not what we were promised.
I to make it all about me, I was when this person and I were breaking up, I was releasing a song that person had seen me play with my band, and I turned it into a different genre song because it felt like it. Started crying, saying that's not what it is. It just went nuts. And so I kind of feel for George Lucas here. I kind of know what that is. Oh, you're bouncing and then you're mad that things changed without you. Well, what the fuck do you want? What do you want, lady?
See, anytime divorce comes up in this show, it's gonna be personal for Jason.
Yeah, I'm gonna get mad.
Like, I'm not mocking. I watched my parents go through multiple divorces, and just every one of them is deathly personal. Like, it doesn't matter how into the relationship or not they were. Some more, some less. But yeah.
Yeah, no.
So, I wonder what old Georgie's doing. Motherfucker. You know?
I have a feeling he probably knew all of this, or assumed it at the very least.
You think George was waking up and just Marcia fucking 10 times on the missed calls, like, oh yeah, well, I'm just gonna not do that.
My battery's dead.
Call Amanda.
No, I mean, but like I said, I'm assuming the guy's the Squatch hunter was joking, but like, I stand with Marcia. Like what does that even mean? Because if you want to know what it looks like, and it's somebody who's read, a couple of books on it, that's it. But it sounds like Marcia got her fucking money. And I don't mean she meant to bounce on Lucas, but she was like, we got our money. Why are we trying now? Like, it almost seems like, the almost, I hate to say it, but how, like, you ever hear somebody who's like, yeah, we get a record deal, then we're rich, then we do whatever we want. Or I make one movie, then I'm rich. I do this, then I'm rich. Well, I think she was actually at a time when it kind of worked that way. Oh shit, you got is that the thing from Addams Family? Just saw that, like,
likes to be the thing.
Just saw it, like, run by. No,
I'm a helping hand. Whoa, 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 whoa.
I'm Marcia Lucas.
They think you're funny.
But she was like pretty much like, once Star Wars was a success, and not to be like the sexist ball and chain type, but she became kind of like a, why are we doing this? Fucking slow down. She didn't share his vision or his enthusiasm to finish what they had started. And to kind of contextualize things a little bit, we'll talk about what happened, that news up front, because that's what people are probably want to hear about if they don't know. And then we'll talk about, I pulled a bunch of quotes from Rinsler's book. Since we were dealing with a Rinsler topic, I figured it was fair to pull in Rinsler's Marcia Lucas moments from those books. And so I did. And but up front, I think it's important to note that it she doesn't really call like George Lucas like a son of a bitch or anything like that. She says George is in his heart and soul a good guy and a talented filmmaker. I wish he would have kept directing other kinds of movies. But when I went to see episode 1, I had a friend who worked at ILM.
Hold on.
This is like a friend zone letter.
I wish this was read in Eartha Kitt's voice.
If you have the quote, you can Eartha Kitt it.
Like Eartha Kitt circa Emperor's New Groove. I wish he would have kept directing movies and other important films like that.
Was I his wife? No, I was his niece.
My wife. This is my wife.
He made Howard the Duck.
But
Kronk!
I had a friend who worked at ILM who took me as a guest to a preview. I remember going out of the parking lot, sitting in my car and crying. I cried. And I honestly, though, I want to throw it out there that this is going to be taken however people want to use it for whatever reasons on the youtube.com machine, for sure. But if she was seriously rooting for George Lucas and rooting for Star Wars, and then he went and made a movie that she thought was bad, she would cry because she was so disappointed that it didn't all come together. And I think that is like an important thing to note, is that her crying isn't because she has some fucking vendetta against people and wants to start a YouTube Fandom Menace channel. It's that she thought her friend or somebody she loved had failed as a creative. And at the same time, like what's his name, Scorsese. She has more in common with him. And what is he doing but shitting on your beloved Marvel films like every other interview he does? Because she is not the kind of filmmaker, or was the kind of filmmaker, who would make those kinds of movies. And to me, if you don't like 6 of the 9 Star Wars movies, it's like, well, what do we... You don't like Star Wars at that point. You like Star Wars in a moment in time. You know?
Way I took it is, okay, one, let's be honest, she hasn't made a movie in like...
No, she got rich and she bounced.
Like
she got the fucking money and she ran, dude.
But the way I look at it is, you know, that whole American Zoetrope era, you know, let's say THX 1138, the student film,
yeah,
you know, Electric Labyrinth, up
through
the initial Star Wars, I would say before release, they really were like thinking about, we're going to make like the new Hollywood up here in Marin County. We're going to be outside the system. We're going to be independents. And they didn't really, I mean, the sense I get of it was they didn't intend, you know, for Star Wars to consume everything, that it would be one thing and then maybe there'd be other stuff, but it would all be under this like independent filmmaker spirit, that 70s, you know, director auteur thing. And then life changed. And I just feel like this is a person who's remembering what, you know, they were a wide-eyed and starry 40 years ago, and then she's seeing something that would be as far away from that initial spirit, which, by the way, is probably blinded or hindered by nostalgia. I mean, when, in the same way that you ever have a friend that, you know, you get older and they just like you're no longer friends. I have my best Star Wars friend in the world, the guy that I grew up with, you know, since the 4th grade. We're not there, you know, and that split was in the Army, and it just never, I've tried to mend it. It's just, they're just different people, man. There's just, you can't.
On sometimes, yeah.
And I just feel like that's part of what you're getting here with this sort of thing. But
did he fuck the carpenter when you were trying to build a ranch with him? No, I'm just kidding.
Divorce Jason, man, is vicious. Like I gotta say, like man, in another universe, you are Saul Goodman. Like in another,
right?
You know,
Totally.
you're like, I'm getting them all. Like, and I'm fucking smart and clever. Like, and I know branding. Like, but look, I agree with you that when you're this far into Star Wars, and now, I think the problem is. Let me finish that sentence. And now you're saying something that's like, well, what are you really a fan of? Were you a fan of 1975 to 1982? You know what I mean? Like, is that what you're a fan of? Because yeah, there's plenty of Star Wars channels they're there for you on that one.
Yeah.
You know, like, but there's a bunch of Star Wars, like anything else, it changes and evolves. It's like saying, it would be like, if Steve Ditko saw all the Spider-Man movies and was like, I came out and wept, Stan Lee called me. Well, Stan Lee ain't making the movies, 1. 2, you know what I mean? Like, you made something in 1963. Obviously, it's going to be different in 2020. You know, like, it's anything you make 40, 50 years ago is going to change. If it's good enough, it's going to keep evolving. Quite frankly, it's the things that stay there. I mean, how many characters created in the 30s stayed what they are? I mean, has Tarzan really changed? No, that's why every time I make a movie, people groan like, fuck this shit again.
The fucking Monkey Man is back.
You know, like, it can't really get beyond what it is, but when something's really good, it can constantly evolve or be mutated or changed because
you think the new Godzilla stuff is in that criteria?
I don't know, man. I don't get Godzilla and stuff, so I'm not the guy to speak to it. But I think Godzilla hasn't changed. Inherently, it's just a giant monster. And anytime, if Godzilla took place in a Western, you'd be like, what is this? You know, like, it kind of...
Cowboys.
I love that idea. Godzilla versus the Cowboys? I would totally watch that.
That's Favreau's on it right now, like in the volume. So,
that tail, bro.
I don't like that movie. I thought I was going to love it, but I didn't.
And he's going to team up with John Carter. We're bringing it all back.
Rangers of the Republic, here we come.
And then Marcia elaborates. She says, I cried because I didn't think it was very good. and he thought he had such a rich vein to mine, a rich palette to tell stories with. He had all those characters.
So
And,
there was a point where she just felt like it all just fell off, right? She's saying, but she won't say exactly where it was.
She goes on to say, and I thought it was weird that the story was about this little boy who looked like he was 6 years old, but then later on he's supposed to get with this princess who looked like she was 20 years old. You know, and so she like
This
ages
is
him.
the forward to Kanzian's book. Kanzanjian.
Kazanjian. I'm not sure.
What does the prequels have to do with Howard Kazanjian? Like, I'm just kidding. like I'm just saying, like, this is the guy who produced Raiders of the Lost Ark, Return of the Jedi, slew of films, and she's just like, and then the prequels, you know, it's about this little boy, and what does he know? He doesn't know anything. He's a little boy. I wept. Like, it's just it's like shit. Yeah, some shit to get off your fucking chest. I think Rinzler's just gonna click record, like, you know.
Well, there's probably a good chance. I haven't read it, so I'm only guessing. I didn't send me a copy of it or anything like that. I did get a copy of that new Kevin Smith book though. It's pretty rad so far. I think I'll talk about it tomorrow. But I have a feeling that it was like probably juxtaposing where Kazanjian and Marcia, for instance, go and end up compared to where the thing that they were known for went. You know what I mean? Like how I'm guessing that it's that fork in the road moment, because Kazanjian doesn't continue on with George Lucas. You know, George Lucas gets Rick McCallum doing Young Indy, and then they become partners. So I don't even know if it was ever even on the table for, you know. But anyways, should we talk about the sequel trilogy quotes too?
Yeah, well, I just want to also throw in before I forget, the real shame of it is that Marcia Lucas never made any more films. Like, I really think like, and if you really see a lot of the consensus, I mean, like Patrick Willems covered this, a few other people, like, you know, she was a fantastic editor. She really helped shape the tone of the first Star Wars film in a major way. And the fact that it's like, oh, George could have done what you could have done anything, you know, after the 80s. You could have, Scorsese can't make films. You could have gone back. You could have been editing Goodfellas or The Wolf of Wall Street, or
unless there is a story that we don't know about, and I don't want to assume that the story exists if it doesn't, but that she was purely blackballed. That's
true too. I mean, I forget it. I'm a man. I'm a white dude. You know, like talking about. Go ahead, Jesse.
I said, I believe it.
Yeah. Yeah, but it really could. I mean, he's a powerful dude.
Would Scorsese blackball Marcia Lucas?
I don't know.
Yeah, because there was a guy that got blackballed that he ended up putting in Goodfellas because he was a friend, and he had got kind of blackballed or something like that. I heard on a podcast of Goodfellas.
But I mean, but it's like you know, yeah. I mean, what was the relationship between George Lucas and all of those other filmmakers? And you know, for instance, I'm just making this up, but I mean, at the time, if you needed visual effects, there weren't many places to go. And I'm not saying, like I said, I'm not saying that it happened. I don't know if it did, but I'm just saying it's definitely worth asking or wondering about. But it does look like, and when you hear the things about her, was that if they worked for 10 years really fucking hard, and then she was like, I am done working hard. And they got all the money came in, and she was ready just to bounce and to go live on that money and be good. And the thing about it is that you could definitely see there's two perspectives though. The first one is that she has a fucking point. And the second almost valid point is that what George Lucas ends up doing is fucking absurd. Now, option one, make Skywalker Ranch. All my friends could come and make movies. We could be outside Hollywood. We're living the dream. Filmmakers could come use the offices. Like that's badass. Little filmmaking. I don't want to call it a socialist utopia, but it's kind of probably in the earlier version of it. And before he becomes a very good capitalist. And
I got to keep 300 people employed. I only intended for 100. but now I got 313. By the way, I'm quoting actual numbers in the Star Wars Archives book. I just coincidentally read the Return of the Jedi sections where he's talking about, and here I am, I'm sitting here trying to keep this thing going, and 313 people. I'm like, that's a fucking specific number, George. Like, remember, and these interviews were done now. They weren't done in 1983, so he still remembers, you know.
Yeah.
Like, you know, very specific. What am I supposed to do? These people are counting on me.
But you know, when you, because it's like, I think once you become a billionaire, once you're in that realm, you're fucking nuts. Like, I mean, enough is never enough. If you make it to that level, something is inherently broken inside of you that you need to take it to that level. That's not artistic. All of them.
You know who proved that in a very short amount of time was
every
Notch.
Billionaire ever.
Notch.
Who?
When he
Notch?
got his Microsoft money, he was this dude living out in Norway. Everyone was like, "Oh, that's right." He leaves Norway, leaves his girlfriend, what's in the documentary or whatever, buys this $200 million mansion in LA, fills it with jelly beans.
Oh, that guy. Yeah, fuck that guy.
Like, you just look at, starts putting out alt-right propaganda all over the internet. I'm like, he didn't even take any time. Like, he went right there. You know, like all the money just let everything flow out. Like, it's just the craziest how quickly it went from like the indie game movie Notch to the $200 million mansion filled with jelly beans and internet hate. Like, it's
yeah, when you have a good amount of success at any point, there is a moment in your head where you do for a second go like, yeah, of course I was always going to do this because I'm me and I was supposed to do this. I'm and everyone else just doesn't feel it and believe it like I do. And then you go, no, that's fucking crazy. But they don't have that last part where you
it's
go,
the
that's
opposite of
crazy.
Imposter syndrome. Like, wait,
I've had both at the same time. I've had both at the same back and forth. I'm manic in that way. but I never made $1 billion because those people are crazy. but
I only got 30% of $1 billion, Jason, and it was enough to keep me from never working again.
Never working again.
I'll be sitting on the beach.
A llama, like just
like I never got that part from Die Hard about what the bearer bonds did and all that stuff till like became an adult from Die Hard. Like, oh, okay, now I understand why they wanted to have all that.
Yeah. I can see why when he was talking about his direction, where she was just like, this isn't for me. And there is a part, I didn't pull that stuff out, but where she's like, I want to slow down. Let's stop doing this. Don't write the next movie. And then he goes on and writes the next movie. He goes on and writes Return of the Jedi. And stuff like that. And it's like, so, you know, and I have a quote I actually pulled, and it's George Lucas going, would I do it all over again? And he says, if I knew what I was losing, maybe not. You know what I mean? So he definitely like regrets that he took it in the directions that he did. But
well, Bootsy here says that Howard the Duck was the first movie he did without her.
Yeah, well, we're gonna get into that like a little bit because she.
So would that be another bad script?
Well, the Ewok Adventure was really the first movie he did without her.
George Lucas didn't do Howard the Duck. That's the whole thing. It's like he gave money to it. He was an investor. He didn't write it. He didn't direct it. He was an executive producer on it, and he didn't even have actually. I don't even really think executive producer power. In the end, I'm no Howard the Duck expert. It's not really like that interesting of a movie in that way. But yeah, but you know, but anyways, when he wanted to make Howard the Duck, he wanted to make Howard the Duck Marvel's Howard the Duck, not the one that he's known for. But since he goes and does Phantom Menace and takes it to that place, I kind of wonder if that's true. And I love Phantom Menace for the record, but he definitely that was definitely more Howard the Duck 86 than it was Howard the Duck Marvel, I think. But Marcia goes on to say, I like Kathleen Kennedy. I always liked her. She was full of beans. She was really smart and really bright. I think she's full of beans means that she farts a lot. She was really smart and really bright, really wonderful woman, and I liked her husband Frank. I liked them a lot. The fact that he could stay with that woman's flatulence. No, that now that she's running Lucasfilm and making movies, it seems to me that Kathy Kennedy and J.J. Abrams don't have a clue about Star Wars. They don't get it. And J.J. Abrams is writing these stories. When I saw that movie where they kill Han Solo, I was furious. I was furious when they killed Han Solo. Absolutely, positively. There was no rhyme or reason to it. I thought, you don't get the Jedi story. You don't get the magic of Star Wars. You're getting rid of Han Solo. And then at the end of this last one, The Last Jedi, they have Luke disintegrate. They killed Han Solo. They killed Luke Skywalker.
I hear that in Daffy Duck's voice, by the way. He disintegrated.
and they don't have Princess Leia anymore. They're spitting out movies every year, and they think it's important to appeal to a women's audience. So now their main character is this female who's supposed to have Jedi powers, but we don't know how she got Jedi powers or who she is. It sucks.
Chlorians.
The storylines are terrible. Just terrible, awful. You can quote me, J.J. Abrams, Kathleen Kennedy. Talk to me. So
there's a lot of shade in that.
You think?
Yeah, there's some shade in there.
Yeah. So that's the gist of it is she doesn't like. I mean, the way that she talks about Rey does sound like some old timey like that part. Hey, what's up, dude? That part does seem a little bit maybe it's out of context. Maybe there's more to it. But it does sound like she just has a problem with it being a girl. That was a woman. That was a weird thing to drop in there. And I also like I get where she's kind of I think I know where her mind is, and her mind is that this dumb farm boy, this sarcastic princess, and this space cowboy made Star Wars what it is. And you're killing the space cowboy, but at the same time, she's not taking in the real world considerations that Harrison Ford he wanted to die in it. That was part of the thing of him coming back, they say, anyway.
I wanted to die in the third film, but they wouldn't let me.
So I came back and did 2 more. I did another one after I was dead. But that's where I'm a little bit like, is that true?
I don't know. I think it's all true, and then when it's over, they get nostalgic. It's like Leonard Nimoy wanted to be dead in Wrath of Khan. That was the deal. I will only fucking come back if you kill me. So they put together 3 different scripts, and one of them was the death of Spock, and that was the point of Wrath of Khan. And then the movie was so fucking good, then he's like, I'll only come back if you let me direct the next one. You know? Like,
I have no idea.
All right. You know, you can direct it, you know? Like,
yeah.
So if it's good and you had a great experience, then, and certainly everyone's like, if everyone's like, can't believe they killed Han, he's the best thing about it. Harrison's like, that's right. I am the best thing about fucking these movies are really about Han Solo. Fuck Luke Skywalker. You know? I should be in everything, you know? That's right. Pay me that money.
We could spin it around and throw it back at her too. They killed Han Solo, but then they made a Han Solo movie and it fucking bombed. So,
yeah. Well, I wasn't in it. You know, like
yeah, I mean, Harrison might, you know, I guess you could pull the Harrison defense, and that would be fine enough for me.
So,
yeah.
2 things before we forget. So one, what I was saying before was my other point was that she isn't saying anything that JJ himself hasn't admitted to in the last year, which was, I wish we probably should have came up with a story. Probably should have figured it out before I started. So, you know, we weren't making it up as we went along. You know, kind of it's fucking like
Star Wars isn't jazz. You can't just riff on it. What the fuck?
Although the Trotter Trio Star Wars Jazz album is fucking amazing. Just putting that out there. Bought that in Germany, 2000. Saying. Anyways, and 2, I think she's forgetting what she herself experienced firsthand. Is that fucking making Star Wars is hard, and it's not guaranteed. It's hard.
Oh, that not me.
Literally, or are we talking figuratively?
Yeah. Hard.
You guys,
real
fucking.
hard.
I'm in an Oreo here of some sort. I don't know what it is, but it's not one of the better flavors. So,
yeah. Yeah, no. I also, I kind of have a hard time with it because she could have kept working on Star Wars with George Lucas. She wanted it to end. She was done with it. So it's like she's done with it, wants to throw it away, divorces the guy and walks away, and then pulls out criticisms of it like years later. I don't know if you get that. I don't know. I don't know if you get the right to like do that. It sounds a little to me a little self-centered, a little fucked up. I don't know if it's professional. You know
There's
what I
the
mean?
anarchist in me that loves
Well,
the
yeah, but
bomb.
it's not
No.
like she took old Yeller out behind the trees and fucking put a bullet in his head.
Fuck,
Wow.
that went dark, dude.
You went Taco Donna.
Yeah,
So I don't even know what that means, but
you went full on killing Chewbacca by throwing him up into a star,
No,
or whatever happened in
Or
that
getting
book.
by force lightning.
But,
by the way, that's the book when I was like, I don't need to read this stuff anymore. Like I'm out
Yeah.
the book game. This is not for me. Whatever they're doing, I'll come back to it later. I never did. Actually, I did on Catalyst. That's when I came back. So it was a while.
but I went. Yeah, go ahead.
But making Star Wars is hard.
Thank you.
And if anyone thinks it's fucking easy, hey, go make a 2-minute trailer of a fan edit or something and see how well you do.
Yeah,
It's super, super difficult to do. And there's no guarantees it'll ever turn out well, no matter how much talent or money you put. More money doesn't equal a better Star Wars.
yeah.
No.
It doesn't. And more time doesn't equal a better Star Wars, because Lucas started development on episode 1 full force in 94. Doesn't come out till 99. So he had plenty of time for one film. He wasn't writing all 3. One film. And so that doesn't solve it. What solves good Star Wars? And if anyone had the answer, the guaranteed answer to that, they'd be running fucking Disney right now, I think that more often than not, you put talented people who have a vision and you fucking pray for the best. And if there's any, we could all agree that if there's any critique to be made of the sequels, is that there was no coherent vision.
No.
Not from what Disney wanted, not from what a particular director who made a film wanted, to what the fans were expecting. That being said, there's fucking 22 James Bond films, and I can count fucking 4 of them, 3 of them. You know what I mean? So, and everyone's looking forward to the next James Bond. That doesn't mean James Bond fucking sucks forever. It's dead. Can't believe, oh shit, fucking game over, man. Game over.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, and I love 2 out of 3 of them. And the third one of the sequel trilogy, I like. I just don't love it. And making that in that studio system under Disney, that could have went a lot worse. You know what I mean?
And the fact that it's produced since then, The Mandalorian, and arguably my second or third favorite Star Wars film, which is Rogue One, and that's a colossal fucking Hail Mary of a movie. If there ever was one, it's right up there with Donnie Darko, almost probably shouldn't exist, in its current form. It's almost a fluke the way it worked out, but it did. So it's just one of those things where fans aren't going to see that. They're just going to be like, that's right, put Marcia Luke in charge. Marcia Luke versus Kennedy. Celebrity death match.
I stand with Marcia. I stand with Marcia, you guys. Just want everybody to know. So no, but I think this isn't going to be like the most in-depth thing, because I didn't have 3 or 4 days to go and research everything. But I went and pulled I went and pulled some quotes just to kind of start to contextualize a little bit from the Rinsler book, which I thought was fair since it was another Rinsler book, or 3 Rinsler books actually. But Marcia Lucas and Verna Fields were pre-approved as editors, and Walter Murch is pre-approved as post-production supervisor. A logical clause given that they worked together on American Graffiti. 40% of them, and it goes on to about profits. So very early on, Marcia is placed as an editor, and Walter Murch is the post-production supervisor, okay, and Verna Fields, right? So we go on to 1976. Marcia helped edit Scorsese's next film, Taxi Driver. Lucas spent more time alone making notes before commenting or before committing to the second draft. Quote, I wish you were reading this. Sith Knights look like Linda Blair in Exorcist. He wrote, as the bad guys are re-Christian the Sith, Vader do something evil in prison to Deke, he wrote, as General Vader becomes a Dark Lord of the Sith. So it's just like, this is like what's going on. But I thought this was
Star Killer script.
I thought this was an important thing to lay out here, because most of you guys who are out there talking about how much you stand with Marcia Lucas probably don't watch Taxi Driver, don't like movies like Taxi Driver.
Saw the Joker.
Yeah, you saw the Joker.
Yeah,
you probably are stockpiling ammo somewhere. But other than that, you really haven't. No, but
we all got a
she,
stockpile ammo.
She is editing Taxi Driver, and he's writing Sith Knights look like Linda Blair. These people are vastly different people, and creatively. And what you end up with, though, is this idea that the Taxi Driver editor saved Star Wars. You will see Star Wars was saved in the edit. That's what you will hear constantly. And it will get elevated to Marcia Lucas saved Star Wars in the editing. Dude, there's a lot of people editing this movie, by the way.
Right.
There's a lot of, and George Lucas is no laughing matter when it comes to editing. It's probably the thing he's the best at. And so that's very important context. So what you end up having, though, during the actual production is Marcia goes on to work on the final battle sequence. So ILM could start and needed someone else to start at the beginning. And so basically they end up bringing in Richard Chew. Marcia concentrated on the end. This is another quote. Marcia concentrated on the end battle. Chew turned to the escape from the Death Star. And he says, I started working on the picture at the beginning of August 1976. So you end up right there. It's not like this is a one person gig now. This is Richard Chew is on in August of 76. So once again, Marcia's working on the end. He worked on it weekends up until that time and locked it on schedule. And then Lucas goes on to say, I cut one sequence myself. It was too hard to explain what I wanted. So I just cut the whole thing. It had to be cut right away because of the special effects. We had to know how to do it. So I sat down and cut it. Okay. I mean, because like I said, this is going to be miscontextualized as time goes on. Later on, we end up with Marcia Lucas called me, Hirsch says, and she said, things are going a lot slower than we had hoped. Our editor in England didn't work out, and we were having to recut everything. We've got Richard Chew working on the picture, but we're just not getting enough done. Are you available to come out? And I said, my wife is expecting a baby, but let me ask her. The timing was crazy. But I went home to Jane and I said, I'll understand whatever you say. I didn't offer to go work on Star Wars. And she said, go do it. And so that was Hirsch. So now you got Hirsch, you got Chew, you got Marcia, you got Lucas. There's a lot of fingers in this pie right now. Okay. Yeah. This movie is not getting banged. This movie is getting gang banged. Okay. You need some context.
Yeah, like what's the number already here? We're like at 6.
So Marcia Lucas called me, says, and wait, yeah, I already read that one. Marcia and Chew were downstairs near the assistant editors and the coding machine. Both Chew and Hirsch were able to assess Lucas's editorial style. George likes to keep things simple, and it gets his energy from cutting, Hirsch says. Chew goes on to say he was pretty spare. Coming off Cuckoo's Nest, One Who Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, it especially struck me. Milos Forman would have 4 or 5 printed takes of a master. Then he would have the singles and the 2 shots and 4 or 5 of those. George, either for aesthetic or budgetary reasons, was much more controlled about that. And that was budgetary. And then it goes on to say basically, George, Richard, Marcia, and I would sit at the machine for a couple of hours, taking turns and making suggestions. So right there, you have those 3, Richard Chew, George Lucas, and Marcia, all taking turns. One person gets tired, next one gets up. I think she ends up on the movie Viola. I think he had this movie Viola, which I think he had to stand up to do, if I understand it right. So anyways, So as time goes on, this is an important thing I think to understand. She ends up fighting for a couple of scenes for Luke to be in the movie. And the 4 scenes with Luke and his friends were tried in different places, but much more arguments for cutting came from George. Marcia wants the Biggs Darklighter scenes in the movie. George says these performances suck. I don't want them in the movie.
It's got a stash. Just put it out there. Force tickler. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I don't blame her. I mean, anyways, George didn't like the performances, and the later relationships Luke creates are stronger. So one of the big topics that came up was, how do we speed up getting to the cantina scene, she says. And the answer was to stay on the story of the robots, also because it's much more unconventional. That's when George told Paul and me for the first time that was initially how he had written the story. To us, who were new to the picture, that just seemed the way to go. So if you believe what everybody's saying and that Rinsler didn't let anybody pull any fast ones, the organization of the movie comes from George Lucas first. They move away from it into a traditional edit. The editors, Richard Chew specifically, is like, we need to take it to this place. And
I think the story thing here is you have a battle between the thinking of the time, which is what Marcia and these people are talking about, and George thinking what's best for his movie and his idea. Mm-hmm. And so the thinking at the time was, we need to humanize Luke. If we give him friends, then we're humanizing him. We're giving him character development. We're giving him time with his friends we're going to see die later on. So there's this, it's cyclical kind of thing. And that's sort of the storytelling thinking of the time, versus George, who's like, I got to get to the damn cantina, man. As soon as I see these puppets, we're going to sell the fucking toys.
It's like the Flash serials, just kind of keep pumping the panels till you get to where you're going.
And you have an idea in your head where you're like, I just don't imagine this being a character study for 50 minutes before we get on with an adventure. I just want to get on with the adventure. And they're like, but that ain't how you do it. He's like, well, this is how I'm doing it. I've been there. I've been there on projects where, I'm fighting with people are like, well, that's not how we do it in comics. I'm like, well, then keep making your shitty fucking comics. I thought we're making this. The project needs this. It doesn't need what the thinking of the time says. It needs what the project needs. Right. And that's where who makes the decisions. And Jason, if a director can't make the decisions, right? Who's in charge?
You need more cocaine.
Ooh. and she's like, well, I'm gonna go work on the Taxi Driver. Plenty of cocaine on that set. Guaranteed.
Yeah. So, I've read in other books and stuff that she was a party or something like that. That's not what I mean to imply, but that she would go to New York and she would be with the filmmakers and in the party scene and with socialites. And Lucas was just like, I hate that stuff. And he didn't really like his wife being in it and stuff like that, And so you could see how their marriage was not really meant.
They don't allow plaid in Studio 54.
Right, exactly. So
what's wrong with Mongolian barbecue, Marcia? I don't understand.
No, and then here we could let the internet snake, eat its tail. The second major sequence to be cut was the scene in which Jabba the Hutt spars with Han Solo. Lucas realized that ILM would not be able to complete the complicated stop-motion Jabba he wanted in time to finish the movie. Again, though she knew the scene had problems and would be hard for ILM, Marcia lobbied to keep it. In this, she was joined by Harrison Ford. The problem, once again, however, was pacing and performance. George thought that there were too many phony-looking green Martians that looked like Greedo in the background, Hirsch says. So
too many, huh?
I came up. I forgot to mention this just this morning. I woke up with another stupid '80s spoof, the Golden Greedos, right? And it's all these Rhodians who actually shot first and they lived, right? And they're just they got that little redhead kid from Terminator 2 has a Greedo, right? And he's telling him, and that's Greedo, right? And they're like, hey man, Golden Greedo's like, hey, make sure you shoot first, and he don't, and he didn't make it. Thank you for shooting Han first. You know,
but isn't it funny though that like I mean when you look at how discourse works, how people will use whatever they want for their. I mean the same people that are probably sending me images that they stand with Marcia are the same people that are like the special edition sucks because the Jabba the Hutt scene specifically, and George Lucas lost it. He had nobody telling him no anymore. He had nobody telling him no anymore. And then that's why he put that fat fucking Jabba the Hutt in the scene. Who I already knew that information. I did not need it because I'm an editor. Marcia Lucas knows. Marcia Lucas would have said get rid of that. And then here you go. Marcia Lucas is the one who's like, let's keep one of the problems with the special edition is the fact that you really don't need the Jabba scene until it's a trilogy. Actually, I think I do think it works in the context of a trilogy. In the context of a single film, you don't need it. But if you're gonna, I can see that. If you want to make some coherency between 4 and 6, putting Jabba there brings all in.
I don't think Jabba's threatening enough. Like Han, I got a bounty on my head. You know, like he's like an Empire. Like the Jabba, even that with that CG, it's just he's just not scary enough to like kind of. I don't really want this dude on my fucking back. He's just a
fat Watto in that right there.
I mean,
what it seems like.
Yeah. Hey, what are you calling a fat? I'm not, you know, like a fucking Watto. Watto is fucking fat. Bro. You got the fucking Watto voice. But Giancarlo in The Mandalorian is more threatening than that Jabba. Like, to be perfectly fucking honest with you.
He's way more menacing.
Yeah, so that's the problem with that scene is that Han really seems to be like Han, my boy, Han, my Buki. You know, like it's like they're like buddies.
Oh, you don't know
Han was kind of running that scene right there.
What Buki means, dude. Buki is like, oh man,
Buki is my butt friend.
That's definitely some stuff you don't want to get into on this show. So anyways, George thought it looked phony, right? And then Marcia worked probably, but this is also now if we don't assume that Rinsler and Lucas didn't conspire to make Marcia look bad. But if that was true,
the divorce Jason just showing right up with that.
Yeah. But no,
paranoia is real.
I can definitely see a scenario where a couple gets divorced and then the person who's writing the book controls the narrative and makes the other one look terrible in it. I mean, I'm
not disagreeing with it.
No, that happens all the time.
I'm just saying, like, I'm so naive.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, there's a part, I'm not a divorce. Like, I watch it, but I'm not like, there are elements to human behavior that escape me sometimes because there's a part of me that's like Skinny Steve. Like, I'm like, no, you just make dinner and you do nice things for people. And you don't pick fights because what's that going to get you? And people are looking like, you fucking schmuck.
You're going to be on celebrity rehab at some point. That's what gets you.
Well, you ain't surviving the zombie apocalypse.
But what I want, my point was, I don't think that's the case because Marcia talks to Rinsler for the Kazanjian book. And this book was already out by then. She would have had a chance to control F4 her name and see what he said about her and what she.
If it was a setup, she would have never done the forward. I mean, and she's on the cover, forward by Marcia Lucas. Like that's
yeah. So Marcia Lucas worked primarily on the scenes that were deleted of Luke and his friends on Tatooine, and all the scenes from the moment the X-wing pilot closes their canopies up until the end of the film. So you have Marcia working on a bunch of shit that doesn't matter, and then working on a bunch of shit that does matter, which is the end battle. However, and I am not trying to belittle her contribution to the film because it's huge, but at the same time, it's a visual effects driven sequence full of storyboards that she didn't draw, full of visuals from other films that they edited in, like Dam Busters and stuff, to like pull it all together, that Lucas was editing in that as well. And then she ends up cleaning that up and making it cleaner, making it not feel like a shoestring budget piece of shit.
And let's not forget that may or may not work until John Williams' music turns on. Right? like go watch all that sequence with the sound off. You know what I mean? And then do it 700 times before you ever get music over it, because that's how many times you got to look at it when you're editing that stuff like that.
Yeah.
And they don't even know. It's not like Williams wrote the music and it's in their head while they're editing. They don't.
Well, and you're right. I think you're sort of getting at what puts the heart of the sequences there, and it's Mark Hamill and it's John Williams to most extent is the music, but also up until that point, he could have literally just flown up straight in a spaceship, flown right to the thing and dropped it in, and we would have been like, yay, because it's all of the stuff that comes before that builds that movie. The ending is fantastic. Like I remember the ending was like, you felt like a new person when you saw the ending of that movie. It was so uplifting, like as a kid anyways. And so I'm not knocking that, but it's not like the stuff that made Star Wars she worked on for what it is. The X-Wing pilot moments, that's not what made it. You know what I mean?
Meanwhile, she's like, "You mother! I'm taking away that super chat, Jason."
Oh shit!
I was gonna give you some super chat money, but
Marcia baby, come on! I need that money, Marcia. I got bills. I got bills, Marcia. Come on.
I don't. I'm Marcia Lucas.
Marcia.
Bacon.
Kind of got a stash going. Like my stash, Marcia. Anyways,
and she kept my name. Damn it! She kept my name.
But yeah, so anyways, once again, worked primarily on the scenes that were deleted, and then the X-Wing pilots closed their canopies up until the end of the film. So that's important at that point. So Marcia had on the flats of Hollywood. She was working on New York. At the end of their day and at the beginning of the night, we would have dinner somewhere, my breakfast, her dinner. And I think that night before we finished the monorail mix. So basically she ends up going to work on New York. She becomes, I believe, the supervising editor on New York. I want to say, I think that was her actual job. So, but that's another important distinction about the movie is it's being edited together, and she like literally leaves Star Wars to go work on another movie before it's finished. So that's yeah. I mean, and George Lucas, so Marcia Lucas, Richard Chew end up winning for best editing the award. Don McDougall, Ray West, Bob Minkler, and Derek Bell for sound design. Derek Ball.
Unions, man,
Nominations include George Lucas for best director, best screenplay, right? Gary Gertz for best picture, and Alec Guinness for best supporting actor. So that's all on the A New Hope side. For Empire Strikes Back, there's not a lot about Marcia in the Rinsler book about her in that one. There's just a lot of like, it sounds like for Empire, she may have worked on the work print, like, or the assembly cut of the movie, but it doesn't sound like she really goes in super deep on it. I could be wrong, but that's my understanding of it at this point. So, Return of the Jedi, Marcia. So he told me, always save a person whose opinion you trust for the very end. And then, I love film editing, Marcia Lucas would tell a reporter. I have an innate ability to take good material and make it better, and to take bad material and make it fair. I think I'm even an editor in life. So that's what she's saying by Return of the Jedi. She ain't editing anymore. She's editing life. Editing life now.
No insecurity there.
The fabric of reality at that point. So anyways,
her and Marianne Williamson are best buds.
Yeah. And then Marcia, so Marcia goes for the divorce, and I was depressed just because I had no idea. It just came out of the blue, Lucas would say. I was trying to finish the movie, but now I was also going through a divorce. I tried to hold myself together emotionally and still do the movie, but it was very, very hard. I was going through this huge emotional turmoil through most of the post-production and barely standing. It was an act of great energy just to get up in the morning and go to work. I was so depressed. Oh yeah, and also he goes on to do Temple of Doom. So that Howard did that comment earlier. Temple of Doom comes next. But yeah, so when you want to get down to it, she bounces before they've even finished Return of the Jedi. So there's some people who treat Return of the Jedi as a piece of shit, and other people who treat it as a great work of art, like myself, who thinks that it is great. Uh, you have your Randalls and your Dantes, and
It's not
I'm a
high on my
Randall.
list, you know.
Fuck you. No, no.
You wish, lover.
It's no poo. But hey,
So, and then blah 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 blah. George is a great storyteller. So Marcia would edit a lot of the emotional type scenes. Starkey adds. Dwayne was doing a bunch of the Ewoks and Ewok battle scenes, and George, whatever he decided to do, he would just do it. And he
just
was
make them
looking
tell
over.
stories.
He was looking over everybody's shoulder. Marcia would show him what she was doing, and George would give comments, or Dwayne would. So, in addition to cutting himself, he was the principal editorial vision of the movie. So she is editing like on Return of the Jedi, even during the thick of their stuff, right? Marcia. So they go on to say Marcia and I have parted amicably and would soon divorce. Lucas spokeswoman Sid Ganis said Lucas would retain custody of the couple's 2-year-old daughter Amanda. If I had to do the films all over again, I'd have to think about it, especially if I knew what I was going to have to give up in order to get it, says Lucas. So that right there is what I pulled.
And then I look at Francis and I go, yeah, I should have made the puppet movies, you know.
I am the puppet
Yeah.
master.
I don't like being poor. It doesn't suit Georgie.
George likes to get paid. So
Yeah. It's always green in Marin County.
James says, I agree with Marcia that Jay didn't have a clue on how to make a Star Wars movie. I don't think the problem was killing Han and Luke. It's far bigger than that. It's not about spaceships. Yeah, I think JJ knew how to make a Star Wars movie. I don't think he knew how to make a new Star Wars movie. I think
he got wrapped up in too much nostalgia, I believe, and just was trying to put it out there instead of just concentrating on the movie he should have been making.
Yeah.
I don't think J.J. Abrams is a very good writer. Like,
Right.
I'm just going to go out there and say, I think he's a really good director. He knows how to get performances with actors. There are scenes, even in the second, was it Into Darkness, Star Trek, when Spock, Kirk, and Uhura are in that ship, and I'm like, this is Star Wars. This is before he did The Force Awakens, when they're in there arguing with one another. This is Han, Luke, and Leia, like, perfectly. But he's not good at writing. He's just not. Like, Zack Snyder can direct a film. I don't think he can write a fucking film to save his ass. And I think he should stay out of fucking writing scripts because they're horrible. You know, period. And people go, what about fucking Dawn of the Dead? James Gunn wrote it. James Gunn can write anything.
Yeah, he can.
So that's where I'm with you.
Toxic Avenger too, right? He started there.
Romeo and Juliet, man. Like, and go watch. People telling me Dark Knight's dark. Go watch Super. They don't get much fucking darker than that.
We rented Tromeo and Juliet from Hollywood Video. From Hollywood Video, we never returned it. And then they're gone. But in the closet there, I think it's a copy of Tromeo and Juliet on VHS. Never giving it back.
Yeah.
Never.
But I just, that's the thing. Like, JJ, for some reason, and he's talked about this before Star Wars, he feels he has to have a hand in writing things. I don't understand it. He's not good. Like,
I kind of understand how, like, he feels like if he has a say in the writing, then he's probably able to bring the directorial, like he's able to bring the writing into what he wants to do as a director, and it's probably just makes it a hell of a lot easier for him. But at the same time,
in his contract, couldn't it?
It's definitely. I mean, it's definitely.
Yeah, it is. It's just I don't agree with it.
No. I'm with you. He does really good visuals, but he makes calls that are either very, very what the audience wants or thinks they want, and then but when it comes time to go, I know better than the audience. He doesn't. He's the audience. That's the problem with him.
And I'm not being facetious to JJ. I'm just being honest. Mm-hmm. He made me realize that the prequels are much better written films than whatever he put together. And they're not very well acted films. I think part of that comes. I think I don't understand, and I've talked to my buddy who who's done personal directing. He does DP and technical work. He wants to be more of a director's situation. But I'm like, the relationship with the director and the actors, is that where it comes through? Like, you know what I mean? In the performances, I mean, I think the best performance in the Phantom Menace is Jar Jar Binks. People can say all you want. He's actually emoting. You know, it's crazy, it's over the top, but that's what he wrote. George wrote that. That's in the script. You know, like it's not like Ahmed Best was fucking reinterpreting that character. He was bringing a lot of energy. Bringing energy to scenes that are fairly fucking stilted. And the second best is Ewan McGregor and then Ian McDiarmid. You know, and as much as I like Liam Neeson's, he is very Pollyannish, like, ooh, you know, and I don't know, man. And the fucking dude who doesn't even talk, Darth Maul, brought more energy than Natalie Portman. Like, it's so weird, but I fault the director for that, not the actors, you know, like for whatever thing that comes through. So JJ's good, well, obviously with actors. I mean, I'll never take that. I mean, those little kid acting in Super 8's fantastic. Like that scene in Super 8 when they're on the train trying to get that one shot. It's an amazing set of stuff. And it's not because the script is genius. That's the directing and the kids and all that coming together. But the story of Super 8, it's fucking dumb. It doesn't have to be. There should be an emotional core, but it's just like, well, that just kind of went nowhere, you know? Bummer.
Yeah. It does seem like he has it's weird because I know he didn't direct Lost. I know he's not responsible for most of Lost, but it is sort of weird, and I love Lost for the record. But
I do too.
It's weird how the problems with Lost are actually the problems in all of his movies too. You know what I mean? And it really is. It's like you know, I'll deal with this debt later kind of situation on the movies. And so it's fun when it's spending, but when it comes to, at the end of it, it doesn't really necessarily, and I do like the ending to Lost by the way.
And I think he's at a position in his life where he should know his limitations. I'm not the best at just writing shit. Maybe he's got the ideas and he wants to have whatever, but he's just not like and no offense to the man, but like, you're taking on big properties, you know, and it's like, wouldn't you, why do you, I don't know, man, like, wouldn't you want the best fucking result to come out? And if the best result is, I'm not the guy to do that, like, I mean, I don't see J.J. Abrams going, I'm going to score the fucking movie too. Like, well, okay.
Like,
that'll control the emotion.
But let's like take it, I guess, a little bit back. Like, if this was school, JJ's homework assignment wasn't go make your best Star Wars movie that you could make. His homework assignment was remind people what they liked about Star Wars and make that movie. And
I'm talking about Rise of Skywalker though. Like I think my biggest critique of JJ is not The Force Awakens. My biggest critique of JJ is The Rise of Skywalker. It's probably the most useless Star Wars film we've got so far. It is useless. It is not an end cap to a 9. I told you, it's the fucking book it's the book that takes place in between Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones, the Rogue Planet, right? It's this.
It just resets everything back to Return of the Jedi.
Right.
I mean that's basically what it to the end of Return of the Jedi. At the end of the day, that's essentially what it does. And Marcia, I think, also in her assessment was a little bit unfair because Carrie Fisher dies. So I guess maybe she would have recast her. Maybe she just wouldn't have cared. And
she didn't get to read the Duel of the Fates script, apparently.
Right. But I do think JJ gets Star Wars. Like I said, I still think he knows how to make new Star Wars. And I think that's you know,
I would have loved
and her critique of 8 is that Rey has a pussy. I mean, that's how it reads anyways.
I think when she says girl, I don't think she's thinking, you can read that as because she's female. I'm thinking they just put a girl in the role and not like a warrior. It just felt like a little kid. It's it's like a slightly older version problem of the Phantom Menace where it's a 6-year-old running around because she's talking about there's a 6-year-old running around. Now you got another girl who's super powerful and we don't know why and there's no reason to it. Well, you could also say Luke's super powerful. We don't really know why. There's no reason to it. Like There's not a whole lot of difference there.
Because,
I think
because like Ron Howard's daughter, she came from the loins of a powerful Jedi.
it's the redheads. See, the problem is Anakin was blonde. I think he's a strawberry blonde now, right?
I don't
It's
know.
the power of the Force. What the fuck was I gonna say, dude? the you go down these paths, bro, that I just like, whoa.
Darth, my half sister Darth Del Rio says, so you think Lucasfilm Disney underestimated the emotional attachment that the fans have to the OT characters? See, I don't.
No.
I just think that you could never ever continue that story with everybody being fully actualized perfect heroes that we thought they were by the end of Return of the Jedi. You know, if Han Solo was a good father, Luke was a competent in the picture Jedi, and Leia happened to be a fantastic caring mother who tended to the needs of her child while also doing resistance stuff somehow. All of that stuff, there would be no just a bad guy's come, and he's so powerful that even in all of our perfections, we can't deal with it. But then there's absolutely no interaction between the characters. If every it would have been like Lando showing up in Episode 9 all the time in every scene and every interaction between the big three. So you had to actually say, yeah, perfection is fleeting. People are what you want them to be for a time, but they're human and they fall apart. And if anything, I think it's one of the braver things that the stories did. And I think she's knocking Rey being nobody to some extent, which was actually the bravest thing that they attempted to do. That was just simply erased. But yeah,
Well, and I think the
emotional
biggest
attachment was a problem.
And for me, the biggest problem Disney, and I fault Disney for this more than anyone else, is given that you're already almost 20 films into a Marvel saga, right? And you've already seen the Lord of the Rings movies play out before that, and the prequels. What is a saga film in 2015? What does it mean to make a 3-picture saga, right? Like
people
what?
consider that John Wick.
Yeah, like the fact that
Nowadays.
John Wick has bigger scope than the goddamn sequels is a problem.
And what 1930? When was Gone with the Wind? 33? Am I wrong?
30. I
30,
don't know,
30, yeah, something like that. Anyways,
4 years
you
before I was
push a
born.
pregnant lady down the stairs. Saga. I solved it. There you go, Leonard Maltin. Leonard Maltin.
It's a
ladies and gentlemen.
saga. like so. But what does it mean to be a saga? Like seriously though, like what is the fucking epic film that we're telling, series of films that we're telling, given that now we also own a company that is telling a 20-part fucking story that culminates in the destruction of half the all known life in the universe. You know what I mean? And an ensemble cast of 30 characters. But what are we doing now that's so important? Like, and they never define that. They never say what is the moral, what is the real crux of the saying, the point of this beyond just shit happens, you know, like starships, boom, it's those starships, explosions, it's fun, like lightsaber turn on. Like, what is actually happening? What are we saying? Why make the 3 films other than we got to return our investment? Because they're gonna return their. I know people go, Star Wars isn't a guarantee. Man, fucking Star Wars is a guarantee. I don't get. If you don't know that shit by 2015, you're a fucking idiot. The problem is, do you want the fucking hassle of being the guy who makes Star Wars? Because then you got the giant fucking target on your back, you know. And I think that the person making the call here that really fucked up more than anyone else is Bob freaking Iger. He's the one who said you had to have a movie out by 2015. I was in licensing when we got the fucking thing. We were like, we're going to have this movie out, episode 7. And I was like, can we just put I tried to put the episode 7 shirt, like just yellow and black in like 2012, bro. You know what I mean?
Sold 1 billion of them. How they just done it then?
And just left it there for like, just leave it there for the next 3 years. It'll keep selling, you know, like, because none of their shit, it was, people forget, at this time it was Vader on roller coasters, you know, like with the stormtroopers at the theme parks, and Vader opening up a school bus to let the school, like,
Yeah,
it's ridiculous.
There's no underestimating the love for the original trilogy characters. I mean, otherwise we wouldn't we wouldn't have a show for the Mandalorian based on it.
But they didn't have anything to say with these 3 films, you know?
No,
they just didn't have
nothing.
And at least Lucas had the Luke journey, and then he knew he was going to have the Anakin fall for the prequels. You could say it's kind of a bummer, doesn't work out, but there's a goal there. There's a lesson to be learned about democracy failing and people letting dictators fucking run everything, and heroes being like, yeah, we should, you know, and the good guys going, what? You know?
Yeah,
like,
no, it's a really powerful thing when somebody like George Lucas says people give their freedom away willingly, and this is something that democracies need to acknowledge, and I'm gonna have them acknowledge it in a Star Wars movie everybody's waiting for. I mean, that's an important, I think, gift even. Or, I mean, I don't know if gift is the right way, but maybe it's high on the horse. I don't know, but it definitely is. Its at heart is in the right place.
And can you tell a big concept like that in only 3 films these days? Are audiences now expecting more? Should they have announced 6 films? You understand what I'm saying? Like, I don't know. Yeah, it's weird because people expect more now, more content and more time. I don't know.
Yeah,
man.
when
Like,
they're breaking up the Marvel thing into phases, and now we're into phase 4 of their thing, and the Star Wars universe is just kind of bouncing around.
Well, when does the hot bisexual phase start? Has that been announced yet?
Bro, the second Taika showed up with Thor, you know what I mean? We on
there.
We on.
What do you call it? That's like the thing is, like, when it comes down to it, like I do think that there's a big difference between a saga and serialized fiction. I don't think serialized implies saga, and I think that, like, for me anyways, saga is the Skywalker saga. It's that relationship between that family over various films, whereas you do hit a point where I do sometimes wonder if it's correct, or if it was the correct way to go to make the sequel trilogy, even though it's 7, 8, and 9, to make it part of the Skywalker saga. And I know at the end she just looks at the camera and goes, Rey Skywalker, and you're like, there you go. But I like the moment. I actually agree with the scene. But my point
the
is
old woman showing up out of nowhere, bro. I can't. And that happens. I'm like, really?
Dude, okay. Listen, okay. You guys want to know something from episode 9 that like nobody knows? She lives down the way. She goes in there to take a deuce in privacy. Where Aunt
she's full
Beru
of beans.
Where Aunt Beru dies, she's full of beans, just like Kathy Kennedy. No,
Somebody's been on my toilet, Morty.
But Joshua says, "What do you think of the Fandom Menace?" And that's a big, if not loaded, question, because
gonna have to drop some super chat money for that.
Who's that? I don't know who the Fandom Menace is.
Well, no,
Is
it's like one of those questions where you're like, well, do I think the frogs are being turned gay by chemtrails? What do I think of those? I don't know.
Polysexual.
It's fucking nuts. And then it's like, is there just somebody who, it's like, what do I think about people that think there's too much virtue signaling in a movie? I don't know if I care. That's your biggest gripe in 2021, is that you see some virtue signaling in a movie that are all about virtue. I don't really don't know what to say to those people.
While they simultaneously claim that the warriors of virtue needs to be coming back. I'm shit you not. Yeah. They literally say the warriors of virtue, the fucking kangaroo movie, is a better fantasy film, bro. It's the weirdest fucking thing where, like, if you just wait long enough, they'll try and gaslight you and make you think fucking all these obscure, shitty films from the 70s, 80s, and 90s were actually way better than they really were.
So, which is worse, that one or Dragon Ball Z?
Look, man, as much as people go, Dragon Ball Z is the worst adaptation of all time, sit through the fucking Garbage Pail Kids movie. I watch kids cry in a theater.
I didn't know what the fuck you were talking about until you said Garbage Pail Kids movie. Right now, I saw something about a kangaroo and
you ever saw the Warriors of Virtue, bro?
I have no idea what that is. I have no idea. But
Well, you didn't have little brothers in the 90s. I can assure you that.
No, I didn't.
Didn't you have like a blue suit too that he was wearing, the kangaroo?
Yeah.
The blue outfit.
It's not good. And they think this stuff is, bro, I don't know, man. They're fucking weird. How about that? They're fucking weird. Prove me
They
wrong.
look like Beta Ray Bill.
Hey,
Yeah.
I like Beta Ray Bill.
I do too. I want to see him be the champion there on Sakaar.
But I think that it's good for people to be critical of the things that they love. I just don't ever see any love for Star Wars coming out of the fandom Menace. I see a lot of like gaslighting Gina Carano's and Mary Sue. Oh, she got fired. Oh, she works with somebody I agree with politically now. Gina Carano needs to be reinstated. What the fuck have you done to the best actor to ever grace the silver screen of Disney Plus? It's a grift. It's not very sincere. I'm not trying to say like all of them are insincere. Maybe some of them have something that they're just like, I don't think this is right. I don't know.
They're the people I would avoid at the comic book shop who's like ranting to the owner. And I'm gonna get my shit, and then I'll come back later when there's no one here and talk to the owner about comics this week, because these fucking people, I don't know. I don't want to deal with them.
Yeah.
And some of those people were working professionals. Every now and then, some people from Wildstorm would be in there. I shit you not. And
in there and buy the multiple copies they resell online.
sometimes they buy their own shit. That's funny. And I walked into the store. I've seen my stuff. It's weird when you buy your own shit. It is a little weird.
It's I got to make sure the shop that I go to, even at 12 o'clock when he opens on Wednesday, that dude's there every week to grab whatever's new, and he grabs like at least 5 copies of each thing.
Yeah, and I remember specifically once there was a dude in there yelling about what Wolverine wouldn't do. This is when Wolverine in the 90s turned into Beast. He had this weird furry thing. So I don't know, it was weird. Jason, you missed out on some weird X-Men. And these
I don't
people
know
go,
what
Wolverine.
you guys are talking about tonight.
And they go, Wolverine would never do this. And it's because Marvel is all selling out. And I'm just like, he did it because some motherfucker wrote it. So just get someone to come in and write it who writes a better story, and then he won't do it no more. Like,
well, wasn't there a big hubbub when they had X-23 popping up in the comics, and then now
they love X-23. But when X-23 first came out, it was like they're replacing Wolverine with the little girl. Now they're like, because she was a vicious little fucking monster in that Logan movie, right? Now they're like, that's right, but they missed the point that she was also an illegal. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, she wasn't a fucking American, and that they missed the whole fucking point. Like it's totally. They have another agenda, and talking about Star Wars ain't it. You're using Star Wars as a platform to something else, and I would say there's something in Star Wars that talks about this, and perhaps they missed that fucking moral.
Yeah.
You know?
No, and I mean, and when you have Alex Jones, when you associate with him, who says that children who were murdered were crisis actors and puts their grieving parents through hell, you literally have no moral compass. You will say anything for $1. And not all of them, not everybody associated with the Fandom Menace did that. I think that is an important distinction to make, to be fair. But the ones who did are, I don't know how you sleep at night. I think you're fucking disgusting. And you could probably come back and say, oh, some girl said that she DM'd you and didn't have a good time. Fine, go ahead. But you know what? There's not any dead children involved. I'll tell you that much. Jesse had
ran.
I'm back.
Jesse's like, they're coming for me. I'm not going to be here for that.
But, fell out of the computer.
But yeah. Oh yeah, and the reason why I said that was because I wanted to say that the Fandom Menace is definitely going to be soiling some tissues tonight to these Marcia Lucas quotes. And somebody said she's just appealing to them. I don't think Marcia Lucas has any fucking idea what a
Marcia
Lucas.
You think Marcia Lucas watches YouTube?
She's 75 years old. She's 75.
She's like, I love Mark Rebier. Like, you know what I mean? I love him.
Yeah. I mean, the idea that she is on YouTube going, Kathleen Kennedy is a fucking virtue signaling bitch is funny though, if that is true.
She's full of beans. She's full of beans, crunk.
And Lucy says,
the Luke Daddy.
Bootsy says you're totally right. Billions of dollars would turn anybody nuts. Yeah, but I don't. But my point is I don't think billions of dollars just fall down on accident.
No, I'm already
Like, you know what I mean? Those
Well, you know,
Star Wars definitely brought in a bunch of money, somewhat on accident. But one sure making $1 billion deals with Pepsi and stuff like that changes it a little bit. I think, anyways.
It's an easier return on investment than Pirates of the Caribbean. Seriously, like those were hard fucking. Even the sequels with people, you know, I'm like those sequels. They're not what I loved about the first film, but that's high adventure. I would have loved to get those movies versus The Lost World in the 90s. If you understand what I'm saying, like you want to see waste of fucking money, but they had to make those in the water. So you think about how hard Pirates of the Caribbean is to make versus a Star Wars film. Oof.
Yeah,
it's a lot of effort for not as much return.
Yeah.
I was never
able Commander, that's for sure.
I never was able to connect with the Pirates movies. I wanted to like them. I like Pirates, but it just didn't really work for me.
I like Monkey Island fan, my friend.
Those movies.
I love Monkey Island. Monkey Island, I could play that shit all day. But Chris says Disney had to guarantee success with Zervis. Taken big name directors only. I get where you're going with that. I don't think that Ryan Johnson, Gareth Edwards, the Lego guys, Josh Trank. I mean, a lot of these people were fired, but like Josh Trank but what they were doing, I don't think it was necessarily as much that. And Ryan Johnson, I think post Knives Out has a ton more Hollywood power than he did before he made The Last Jedi by far. But I mean, his big claim to fame was like Looper at that point. But going back to a JJ does reek of running back to the safe choice. And they were probably, I mean, and to try to have a little bit of empathy for Lucasfilm in the moment, Carrie Fisher had died. The directors who they had and writer who they hired weren't working out, and they lost them.
That makes me concerned because it's like that whole Ochi storyline. I mean, that's the best that they got to stick in there.
See, I like where. So I think it's kind of funny, like the idea where it starts.
Yeah,
Lando and Luke are on the trail of this guy who's associated with the Sith, and he knows some shit, and there's something going on there, and they're trying to find him. Like all of that stuff, it has there's a, like when I first heard it, there's a lot of potential there, a lot of power to it. But then they make him look like 6 foot tall Maz Kanata, like Maz Kanata's boyfriend or daddy or something. You know, I mean, he looks stupid. He doesn't look like a fucking Sith Lord
or
kind of dude.
Down Jedis.
Yeah, and then they're just like, well, we couldn't find it. Oh, and they took your daughter. Well, I got to go train my nephew because he looks like Adam Driver. He's swole. It's just a lot of it. What the movie leaves you with, some comic book might say whatever the fuck it wants to, but at the end of the day, what's said on screen is what really makes the movie work or not. You know, Rogue One, Catalyst helps it, but Catalyst doesn't save or make Rogue One necessarily work for general audiences. It makes.
No, my wife didn't read Catalyst before the movie. She came out loving it. So
yeah.
But I was just like, again, it's one of those things where you're more informed in a positive way, not like in the movie didn't make sense way.
Yeah. Yeah. James says editors can't say bad movies. They can only make good movies bad. Ask any director about the first cut and they'll tell you it's bad. The idea that the editor saved A New Hope is so misleading. Yeah, I agree with a lot of what you're saying, but not as like a filmmaker though, as somebody who's only made, you know, music videos and stuff like that. But I will say that it by design, the first edit is bad on purpose. The first edit never tries. The first edit simply puts it together so that you could start sculpting. It's like throwing a big thing of clay down and then you start sculpting the clay And to say that the clay that's thrown together before it's sculpted is inherently bad or good, I think is kind of, I don't know. I don't know if that's fair. I'm not sure though.
Editing really controls tone now. I mean, two films
Mhm.
that were made in the editing bay were Ghostbusters and Donnie Darko. And you can see like the director of Donnie Darko hasn't made a film that touches there because it was almost a fluke the way that film was edited. In Ghostbusters, so far, even Ghostbusters 2 hasn't had the same vibe or energy of that first film. They've never gotten close, and part of that is you take the performances and you edit it in a certain way, and you get an energy that is not in the script. It's something that's
true.
existing outside of that.
Yeah.
And Lucas talked about this. I mean, Lucas's whole thing, and you brought this up before, Jason, was like that whole theory of like you take the baby and you put a different piece of music over in front of the baby and you change the tone. Same picture of a baby with different music. Right?
I made a video about it using all of the things from Star Wars. It's somewhere 6 months ago, maybe.
Right. And Lucas sort of took that and was running with that idea throughout THX 1138, American Graffiti, which you can see like when he's like, oh, I'll put all these different music on because that's what I, grew up with. Yeah, but I also think it's playing into that. I think that music is changing the tone of the film in different ways. And because he knew what he wanted, he was able to sort of like, collectively. And you could say now that, yeah, we know that because of music videos and obviously Zack Snyder won't let it go, but he's doing that, legitimately. That's something that's being done in the editing bay that's not being directed on set. It's not in the script. It's something that exists. It's they call it the third artist in comics. The third artist is if you take one penciler and one inker and they both have a unique voice in their line art, when they come together, they create a new artist. And the third artist. And you can see this with like when McFarlane would ink Rob Liefeld stuff. I think recently Kevin Eastman inked Rob Liefeld stuff in like a Snake Eyes comic. And I can like, a third artist emerged. It's a different look, that doesn't exist if the two do their own thing. And so that's what I think. Yeah, the editor's one of those things. And if the editor isn't important, man, go fucking watch the making of Jaws and get back to me on how important editing is.
Without being like specific. Yeah, one time somebody worked at Lucasfilm and they were a little bit known. Probably most people don't know them, but they were fired. And then somebody else came in. And when that someone else came in, they were told to always remember that no one is Lucasfilm is bigger than Star Wars. Star Wars is bigger than everyone here. Nobody is more important than Star Wars, and Star Wars will continue without you. And I think you could almost reverse engineer that to some extent to say Star Wars isn't Star Wars without Marcia Lucas or George Lucas or Richard Chew or so on. But it's all of those people together that make it, sure. But people will go on and then act like the prequels were simply just George Lucas by himself. And that isn't true at all either. And but I do think that the difference is, though, when you get to the prequels, is that Lucas is like, I'm going to satisfy my artistic whims and desires with this one. This trilogy is going to be how I want it to be. And I'm not gonna, I'm guessing here, but I feel like I am definitely right. I'm not going to play to what my ex-wife wanted to make her happy. I'm not going to play to keeping what Gary Kurtz thinks his contributions need to be. I think that he was probably super clear about that with everybody who was involved, that like, I want to do this throwback thing. But in the throwback, I want to put some politics and some sociology. And that is the aim. And that's why when it comes to the prequels, I don't shit on them, because I don't think he was trying to make a really high quality, well acted series of films. I don't think he got the movie and went like, the acting's bad, what happened?
But if he was just more a little, like if he could just get the performances that were in American Graffiti, You know, or fuck even THX 1138, which is not a dialogue driven film at all. There's a lot of mostly a silent film, really.
Oh, it's generally a silent film, yeah.
Right. I just wish that he's just not a guy who's going to sit there with the actors and get into that actor studio thing. And I wish there was some element there of that, because you have Sam Jackson, who's coming off the height of Jackie fucking Brown, bro. You know what I mean? He's at the height of Sam Jackson powers, and he's just sitting there giving the world's shittiest Yoda. Let's be honest, that Yoda's the theatrical release Yoda, the Phantom Menace, it's not good. And he's giving him that eye, and it's like that's it, you know? Like, I don't know, man.
And I'm not saying you're not identifying why the movie doesn't work for everybody. You're totally right. It's like if Jesse said, I'm going to make you guys peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, and then he brings it and we're like, on white bread? Just on basic ass white
on
bread?
Rye.
On rye? No. Or he says, I'm going to bring us peanut butter and jelly sandwiches on rye, and we're like, on rye, and then we eat it and we're like, well, that's what he went to like do. And like that's what he set out to make those movies in that way. And he had done a lot of young indie. When you look at young indie, it's the fucking same. So he went there to get exactly what he got. And so if you want to look at it as an artistic endeavor, he did what he wanted to like do. He just didn't do what a generation that was coming off of Pulp Fiction was expecting from, and Braveheart, which I think is actually like a movie that does not really hold up, at least not for me. I think it's very cliche and shit like that. But what we joked about it before, what was every fan trailer you saw in 1997, 1998 or whatever? It was like Braveheart with fucking lightsabers photoshopped in or something.
Yeah.
And
well, I think what's weird about it, though, to me, what's just weird about it is that it's not that I was expecting, the Miramax director thing to happen in Star Wars in the 90s. I was expecting a guy from the 70s to understand how important actors are to his movies. But then I had to go back and reread a lot of his interviews where he's like, I don't really like dealing with actors.
Yeah.
And if I could never deal with them, I wouldn't. And I'm just like, well, I can't, like, it's not like he's been hiding that, like he's always sort of felt that way.
Yeah.
And that was there before I was born. That was inherently built into this before I was born in 78. So, it's like, okay, then that's where I learned, all right, I can like parts of this and just leave other shit on the table. Like that's fine. It's just weird though, man, that the guy, he's
weird.
Could you just imagine if Lucas, had made fucking Apocalypse Now? Like,
yeah.
I remember when Full Metal Jacket came out.
Me Love You Long Time, of course.
The talking points at the time were that
Me Love You Long Time.
The actors were unrelatable and wooden and weird. And the big movie that was successful at the time was Platoon. Now, over time, I've held firm my whole life that Full Metal Jacket's a far better movie than Platoon, and Platoon's fucking forgettable trash. But over time, it's just a forgettable piece of whatever. It was playing to the things of the day. But Full Metal Jacket is hard to it's, how do I say this? It's hard to, it's not a humanistic story, but it's about dehumanizing people, like on all sides, but like chickens come home to roost in that film. But over time people see that. And I just feel like Kubrick had a hard way of getting to actors that I think Lucas in a way has a hard way of getting to actors. Although Lucas doesn't feel like torturing actors on set, to get a fucking performance. I'll take the Lucas way of doing things.
Can we agree that Shelley Duvall had it coming?
Didn't say that.
No, I actually I don't know the whole story, honestly.
I loved her as Olive Oil. I was one of the fantastic Olive Oil. I do. I really do. But I like that movie. Sue me. But yeah, it's just weird that he doesn't like actors. And given that you wouldn't get that sense in American Graffiti, like that's the most relatable film I mean, I'm really relatable, but go ahead.
No. I think you're identifying. I think the identification is sort of easy in the sense of what he ends up doing in American Graffiti and with the original trilogy is he hires people who inhabit the inherent qualities of those roles. The acting, it doesn't take very much for them to be themselves a lot of the time. It's not hard for, Harrison Ford to bring that big dick energy to Bob Falfa or whatever his name was. Like it's a pretty easy thing for him to do it. And so Lucas doesn't really have to work very hard to elicit those performances from Buck and Opie. That guy is Opie.
But the girl that was
sense. Yeah.
Who was the actress that was with Harrison Ford? The younger girl.
Yeah,
she gets in the car.
Yeah.
That could have been the most annoying fucking. She's supposed to be annoying, but like it's totally when you're stuck with the little fucking kid. I remember when I got back from the army.
That's what it is.
Yeah, when I got back from the army, my brother and my cousins, I had to go fucking chaperone them for something, right? These people were in high school. So right. I'm 22, 23, just did, 3 years in the army. I come back and I'm like, these fucking kids. I'm not that much older when you think about it, right? In terms of like life or the universe, but mentally you're just another fucking thing away. And I just feel like, yeah, he cast an actress who could do that, but I also think that like, he wasn't doing it in a way that, how do I say it? Like the performances came out, like there was a script there, there was things written that are humanistic. And I'm just surprised that for some reason, why does Star Wars, you can see it in Omega and the Bad Batch. Why does it turn into this, you call it the Pollyannish, but it's this weird wooden robot thing. I don't understand why the lack of emotions part of the thing. I don't understand it, like,
yeah, well,
Kurosawa had emotion, right? Every one of those 7 samurai had a completely different emotion.
That's the Disney, the Disney aspect of it that Lucas brought to Star Wars that Kurosawa doesn't have is that just, it's just so simple to understand how earnest and good-hearted they are. But that doesn't necessarily always work in every scenario.
When people invoke Kurosawa, I'm like, why don't you look at the performances of each one of and any of his films, from Stray Dog on through Ron, like, and Throne of Blood. I mean, like, these aren't wooden films,
Right.
Nowhere near it. So I'm just, why does that get missed? Other than it's an epic samurai saga. That's not what Kurosawa was after,
Yeah. I mean, casting Mark Hamill, Carrie Fisher, and Harrison Ford, though, in the original trilogy was either the smartest thing he ever did or the luckiest. I mean, that's just what it comes down to. Yeah, like because Carrie Fisher, she just can't not kind of be a rock star is what it comes down to. So when you read the script of A New Hope, and it's really hard, but if you read the script for A New Hope and just take away, be like, I cannot picture Carrie Fisher, I can't hear her, and then read it, and then you see what she brought to it, you're like, yeah, she brought a lot to that. Actually, she brought a lot of attitude to it that no one else could. And on top of that, though, like Ewan McGregor, I mean, he is kind of the guy. I'm not saying he's Obi-Wan Kenobi, but he is sort of a shy, kind of quiet person. He's not like super loud. He's not like, getting drunk and running into a room like and starting fights like he's Russell Crowe or some shit. You know what I mean? He doesn't have that going on. And Natalie Portman, I do kind of think in a lot of ways is that sort of character. But the thing about Natalie Portman, when they were talking about her early on, the key word PR would drop, and every single thing I ever read back then was the word effervescent. They were hoping she was going to bring, and she really did have a lot of that. Like, what was that? I can't remember what the movie that she did after The Professional, but in between Phantom Menace was.
No, she did Heat before The Professional.
Yeah, it was. This is like a little bit later, but anyways, but she and remember like around the time she was a little bit, I think it was kind of during Star Wars, but she was doing like David Letterman, and she would go on David Letterman, and she wouldn't flirt with them, but she would just be very wholesome and very like super charming and good. But she had this thing about her that she did when she was younger. I think that they were really thinking that was going to bleed through. And I do think that that's what they were looking at when they cast her. They were thinking that, she can do this really serious, like Hepburn kind of thing. And then she's also this, but the thing about it is Lucas never figured out how to tap into that. He never wrote her anything that made that come together. And he tried like on the, you're making fun of me kind of stuff and that kind of shit. But in the context, it was no, it just didn't happen. And so I definitely can see what he was hoping for, what he was going for, in those like Attack of the Clones moments specifically. But by that point, I think had already grown up a bit, and that was starting to kind of fall off. And the Letterman stuff does happen during the prequels, but then once you get past that Natalie Portman, I think like Natalie Portman like goes to Harvard and she is educated. I think she drops a lot of the shit that she had to do, or that she thought she had to do probably as a woman. And I think there was some like kind of like, oh no, I have, I'm going to utilize my power, and I'm not going to necessarily be what everybody wants me to be. And that changed a lot. I think that's what may have happened. And I'm not saying it's for the worst or anything like that, but I think that they wanted these two qualities from her, and in the end, Lucas only got the one, and I feel like modulated her voice down, which didn't help,
and that was weird. And not to tell Lucas what to do, but like, look, if you're like, okay, if I'm a guy who's like, hey, I cast the personality, then okay, I need a younger Carrie Fisher. Who's going to give me that personality? And in 1997, when they're casting this, the only person I know working at that time that had anything like that was the actress who played Faith on Buffy. Like someone who could go super nice, but then give you fucking sass that you're not, like, Han Solo fucking sass. Like you need someone. He didn't cast a personality at that point, I mean, I get he's casting a quality. And you can kind of see that in the beginning, the episode 1 documentary, when he's looking for Anakin, like he's looking for a quality, and I'm like, just cast. And you're right, like maybe the Lucas of 1977 would have cast the personality, like, because there seems to be like intangible things he's talking about in that.
Watch it again. Jake Lloyd fucks the lines up, then he picks it up, he adds to it, he improvises. And so like what they're showing in the actual moment, Jake Lloyd is the best one. The other kid who everybody likes, he was fucking straight up Full House. That's a Full House bitch. That bitch belongs. I'm
not saying that the other kids were better picks than Jake Lloyd. Out of those, I think he was like, right, we could edit around this and get the performance. I'm just saying that they looked at 1,500 other fucking kids. You know what I mean? And I don't think that was probably the best personality they could have cast. Lloyd has a look. And he has a look that he's able to pull off in that film a few times when he looks at you like, oh, that kid could fucking kill me.
Yeah.
Like he has a gaze. The problem is the people around him are also a little still, like there's a version of that, obviously, where you get a Ewan McGregor that's more animated, right? And is like, oh, I got this little kid and I got this girl, or he's like the Bob Falcon. Now I'm stuck with these two kids, in the fucking car on the adventure. And where's my fucking group? Like, why? Yeah. So like,
no, if I had written it, if I was writing it with me and George sat down, he's like, I need your help. That is like literally what I would have done. Is I would have had it where she was a queen who could never go home again. And then he has this kid now, and he has to take care of them while he's trying to do his Jedi business, and he has these things, and then they end up,
3 Jedi and a baby.
3 Jedi.
Marcia, edit this.
Yeah. I mean, what's the takeaway from this? It goes away next week, or is this going to be the thing that we're going to hear about? Like is Mike Zero going to be like Marcia Lucas taking over Lucasfilm? No. Because a funny thing about Zero is I got a friend who I've been friends with for the longest time, literally bought into that whole sequel being redone shit and reposted, and people had to explain to him, and I'm like, he's young. He knows how this shit works. Like, people fall and he goes, yeah, I guess I fell for it. Like, what is with that? It's either the world's greatest performance art, or I don't know why people buy into it. It's hilarious.
Well, I mean, like what it comes down to is that, once again, Knives Out. That woman who says, "Oh, I read a tweet about a New Yorker article." That's most of these YouTubers.
Yeah.
And
it's the best line in the movie.
I mean, it's and I make a joke about it, but it's like George Lucas destroying holiday special recordings. Like, what a ridiculous notion. Like, but it is really truly, it's said by people who should know better too. Like, a lot of the time.
There are 4 pages devoted to the holiday special in the Photo Archives book. I've taken extensive notes.
No, and it's like there's no doubt he didn't like it and it pissed him off. There's like no doubt about that, but that he becomes like an irrational person, it's the same logic that Darth Vader can't go back to Tatooine. It's too painful. It's like, you know what? Like, a lot of bad shit happens to everybody on Earth all the time. And
he goes to Coruscant and he murdered a bunch of fucking kids there.
Yeah.
He
makes a weasel from Suicide Squad.
He built his castle.
Children, but,
Yeah, he built his castle where he choked Padme out. So here
he built this castle where his nuts got burned off. I don't know about you guys, but if my pecker gets toasted, I ain't ever going back to that fucking place. I don't care if it's Chuck E. fucking Cheese's.
In some places, that'll cost you extra. AJ says he misses Hollywood Video. I have a Hollywood Video copy of Dark Forces on PS1.
Hollywood Video was my go-to. When they were closing, I went there and they had those big bins of stuff, right? Like old games or whatever they're getting rid of. And I found a brand new unopened copy of Chrono Trigger in there for $20. So I walked up and I put it down and the guy was like, "Where'd you get this?" I'm like, "It's in the bins, $20, pay up." He was like, "I don't think there's any more in there, like, just come on, let's go."
Yeah.
That's what you get. It's the only time I ever found the diamond in the rough.
Yeah, I made the old adage of "don't shit where you eat." I shat where I rented.
You shat in a Hollywood Video?
Read between the lines, buddy.
put it in the case and returned it.
Lawrence Kasdan also wrote The Force Awakens. Yeah, he helped.
Yeah, he wrote dialogue. He didn't write that.
No,
go watch Solo and watch The Force Awakens and get back to me.
No, you're right. But I mean, I do think that there was an agreed upon structure, and it was basically
feels more like PR. We're getting someone from the old trilogy to help launch the new one, so I don't know about all that.
Steve,
and plus Han Solo's in it, so we're gonna have the guy who, wrote all the best Han Solo lines, I guess, because Kasdan didn't write Solo on A New Hope. You know what I mean? Like, plenty of great Han Solo lines in fucking that film. So, yeah, I don't, when you're like, "So he wrote it," I'm like, he gets credit, but I'm sure dialogue has a lot to do with that. So,
yeah. Steve says, "Why do you guys keep dismissing Lawrence Kasdan's TFA writing?" And no, it's not that. It's that it ultimately, with JJ being the writer director, the amount of power that he now has in that role greatly, it dwarfs Lawrence Kasdan's power to make that movie whatever he wanted to make it. And so it's not necessarily like you could go like a 50-50 partnership, because they can write it however they want and they could agree on things, but once he starts to film something the way he's going to film it, that's also like almost like a third writer coming in is also like the way that he handles that material. But I don't think he had a bad time though. I don't think Kasdan had a bad time. I think Kasdan was right there with them.
I think it was also a bargaining chip to get the Solo thing because him and his kid pitched that, I think that was. But why doesn't Steve bring up Jonathan Hale's brilliant writing on Attack of the Clones? Because it just was dialogue and additional supplemental stuff. George wrote the majority of that fucking film. George is the director. George gets the credit. Like that's the way it
Tom
works.
Stoppard,
So,
Yeah.
Revenge of the Sith.
right.
James says JJ threw out Lucas's story treatments and Michael Arndt's scripts. Arndt is a phenomenal writer. So for JJ to think he could do a better job on TFA is all you need to know about JJ.
But none of us have read that script. And I felt the same way about Duel of the Fates until we spent 7 days reading that fucking script and taught Rob a good lesson. I mean, I heard Robert Meyer Burnett talk about it. It sounded great, but then I was like, yeah, he told a good story. He didn't read the script. He read around the script.
AJ says the Fandom Menace is QAnon for Star Wars fans. That is not far from the truth because
it's on them to prove otherwise.
In the same way, yeah. And then Chris says you all need to have some respect on Patriot Gina.
And you know how you were saying Braveheart really kind of overrated for the 90s? I agree. In the 90s, I'm like, Rob Roy's the better movie. And it's got fucking Liam Neeson's.
Yeah, that was a good movie.
Yeah, I can see that.
Tim Roth, beautiful villain.
Bootsy says John Byrne plus
liked
Terry
him
Austin equals
In the
3D
Musketeer,
artist.
he was good.
The third artist. Yeah, that's
third artist.
Yeah, the third artist is John Byrne with Terry Austin's inks and another artist emerged. Rob Liefeld talked about on his podcast for observations, but
Here you go, Bootsy.
Jim Lee Scott Williams.
Jim Lee Williams.
We can't see anything because of your light, buddy. Just
It
blinded.
has like a glare. Is that JJ? JJ, you fucking son of a bitch! Put in those lens flares.
Wait, his kid did write Spider-Man.
JJ's kid.
Oh, you know what? Also is another third artist is Jim Lee and Alex Ross. Alex Ross painted a Jim Lee pencils once. It's like Jim Lee's art come to life.
Yeah,
It's really great.
And then Chris 888 says sequels are better than the prequels by far. Episode 8 is the best of the sequels. Yeah, I'm like I wouldn't fault anybody for having an opinion either way on that kind of thing. I'm with you. Episode 8 is the best of the sequels. I think it is by far the best of the sequels. In fact, I think
but they're not better than the prequels.
But the emphasis is simply moved. Like it's almost like they got stat points, and this one put stat points in acting. This one didn't. This one put stat points in the structure of what was going to happen in the 3 films. This one didn't. And
Little West End Games. I'm gonna put a little 3D here.
Your foundation.
One.
But what's kind of weird about it is like I was almost going to say Disney is looking at it like what works better for us when we could serialize films indefinitely, making you love Poe Dameron and Rey and BB-8 is important. But then I look at it and I'm like, I feel like Obi-Wan Kenobi, who comes from those 3 prequels, is getting the same amount of love right now that it's coming from the prequels. So
my wife's excited and she hates the prequels. Can you imagine that? How does that work? How does Ewan like the power of Moulin Rouge is
you haven't
fucking
seen
real,
him in
folks.
person. He's a beautiful
Like,
man. He's a beautiful man.
You know, I don't like fucking musicals. All right. Like my favorite musical of all time is Little Shop of Horrors. If that say what you want, I think it's a fucking fantastic musical.
Yeah.
That being said, Moulin Rouge is a work of fucking art. Like that has not been met since. And people try to do the modern songs in a musical. That thing has a pathos that no other film, the musical, has hit since it was made. Like for me,
I mean that Teen Spirit moment is the cringiest shit in the world. But the movie still works for me after that.
Musicals are cringy. Like they're all in there. Like I have a little schnauzer named Baxter, right? Mm-hmm. And the other day he was doing something. Baxter, yes.
My dog's name was Buddy Baxter Grumplestein.
I call him Buddy.
I wanted, but so we have the same dog, Buddy Baxter.
And so I started seeing Suddenly Schnauzer the other day. My wife was like, "You fucking nerd."
Did you get
serial killers?
Did you get Baxter from Anchorman?
Yes. And when he came home that night, we watched Anchorman together. We got him from the pound. He's adopted.
When you would do something bad, I would always be like, I'm not even mad. You know, I don't blame you. You're a dog.
like when I wept from laughter and from pain when Jack Black punted that little dog off the Coronado Bridge. Because sad to say, my 6th grade math teacher killed himself off the Coronado Bridge. Yeah. And we
shouldn't have been so dumb.
Mr. Bissell
If
Everyone
we were
made
smarter-
fun of him, and then Mr. Bissell took his own life, sad to say, and then was replaced by a teacher called Mr. Boner, which, we never let that one go.
Oh yeah.
Like, yeah.
God.
But when it's like,
we had a teacher in 7th grade who his name was Mr. Wong, and he had a really, really thick accent, and people would walk into his class every day and go, "Oh, am I in the Wong class?" And then they would go back to their class. And
it's a different time.
he never got it though. I was in his class. He
Yes,
never
you're in
got
my
it.
class.
days.
This is Wong.
He would just be like, yeah. It was. I don't know if he ever caught on to it, but
Or he was a big Andy Kaufman fan, was just playing along.
Wong was cool. I remember one day walking out of school, and I think he'd had a bad day, and he was like at his car smoking, and I looked at him and looked at me, and I was like, and he was like, and I was like, man, he kind of looks like he's like in the Yakuza right now.
Okay, I want to be correct. His name was Mr. Bone, but people call him Boner because it's the fucking 90s. But he was a cool teacher.
Yeah.
So, and Mr. Bissell was nice. I just only knew him for a week. But it is weird when your teacher commits. So when I see the dog being punted, I'm like, that's funny, but people do kill themselves off that bridge. It's weird.
Yeah.
It's weird. But then Baxter came back with his little animal friends.
Yeah.
I was
When
happy.
I saw Anchorman up, I think at Big Bear. It was either Arrowhead or Big Bear. And people were livid with the movie, and they lined up. Like I died when the animal when the bear shows up, and I was like, this is the best ending to this movie they could have come up with ever. People were angry. There was a lion. I don't want to exaggerate. I'm gonna say 6 people, at least 6 people though, lined up who wanted their like fucking money back because it was the stupidest movie ever. Yeah, they were angry with it. And
I saw it at a drive-in and having the best time in the world.
Yeah,
But it's hard to get a sense of what an audience reaction is at a drive-in because luckily I can't fucking hear anybody.
right.
Like I love drive-ins. If there was a way you could park your car in a building and watch a movie that way without us all dying of carbon monoxide poisoning, that would be my preferred way of watching a film.
Yeah, I've only seen the first one.
The first Anchorman.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't need to see the sequel. It's not.
Yeah, second one is like if you're like watching the first one and then you just want to keep going, you can, but it's not.
I like the drops that come out of that first movie though. Like, milk was a bad choice.
Josh, before we'll end here with this last comment, and that's that Joshua says, I don't think Marcia Lucas understands that Han Solo's death was used to progress character development, particularly Rey Skywalker and Ben Solo. Yeah, I'm with you in the sense that it does do that, and I don't think that she really understood that it wasn't continuing their story, that the agenda of the movie was to continue on with these new characters because the old characters were never going to be the focus. It was never the Han Solo movie. They weren't trying to make Empire Strikes Back and then instead of putting him in carbonite, killed him. Like that wasn't what they were doing. It was literally us. The whole point was to move on to new characters and to develop from there. And maybe as a 75 or a 70-year-old person just didn't see it that way. Maybe, you know what I mean? She didn't see it as like, maybe she doesn't see her story coming to an end, but it's coming, oldie. But you know what I mean? Maybe that's just what it comes down to. I don't know.
Death comes for us all, Oroko Saki.
We're all going to fucking die. And, but so it's kind of a crazy idea that like, oh no, what is the better way of handling it? Oh, I love you, son. I'm going to go work on a farm now. I'm going to go to the farm. It's like, no, you remove it. Just like
perhaps you don't put them on a catwalk in the middle of nowhere and then telegraph it from a million miles away. Like just, the execution of that scene is like, in the theater, I'm like, I'll give this a pass. I'm enjoying a lot of this.
Yeah.
It's the same with the execution of that X-Wing fighter stuff at the end on the Starkiller base. It's just it's completely forgettable. They threw a trench run in. It feels like something that was created in the editing bay with the visual effects artist after like 3 screenings, because you're like, this is
we talked about it
This
during
is-
there was the array and all of this other stuff, and they removed that and simplified it, and then that became more of an emphasis. But
Right.
I think that,
But-
and I feel like
but-
it's clear when I watched the movie, though, Han Solo was going to Ben knowing either that his son was going to kill him because it was truly what he needed to do and it was going to help him get to the right place somehow, or that his son was going to not kill him, was going to come with him. So that's why Han Solo would go out there and do that very stupid thing. He wouldn't have done that if it was like Woody Harrelson. You know what I mean? If it was Hondo Anaka, it was like, hey, come out here. He'd be like, no. But when it's
Especially when
Ben,
there's no handrails.
yeah, I mean, but that's why, you know, I think like
But the fact is, these are the films we have.
Yeah.
This is what they made. This is what this exists. They're not going to undo it, redo it, delete it, redo it. None of that's happening. This is what exists. So the question is, what are the lessons learned?
Mhm.
You know, I believe Mandalorian has been their step to learn. Now, if they make another feature film and they go down the same fucking path and Rogue Squadron is just like a generic remake of all the space battles we've already seen in the first 3 films, then, you know, then they learn no lessons.
I think they did learn their lesson. It just didn't come out. They just didn't make it. And that's when they hired Game of Thrones guys whose name escaped me today. And they hired them.
Benioff and Weiss.
And they hired them for an unspecified amount of films. And it was contingent upon the first one and the second one being successful, whether it would become a series or not. And it was probably going to be High Republic. And that was the idea. And I think that I always say, I've been saying this forever, Star Wars hasn't been a fucking trilogy since 1999. And we need to stop pretending like Star Wars is made in trilogies. And then once you throw in Rogue One and you like that, well, it's not, you know, it's Luke's trilogy. Sure. Okay, fine. But it doesn't work that way. Can you imagine the Marvel movies working if everything had been trilogies, if every phase was a trilogy? If you had 3
No,
movies
that's what I was
to
saying.
make
What
every
is a
phase?
saga?
Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to get at. Like a
Yeah.
saga, the idea of the 3 film thing is something that's old, that's 40-year-old idea. We're in a different, after the Lord of the Rings films, which easily could have been 5 films if you really wanted to break those up into reasonable, you know, like viewing sequences, you know, and times in the theater. They're tremendously big films. I think with Star Wars, my nephew is the kid who grew up with the Clone Wars. His favorite thing is the Clone Troopers and Ahsoka, you know? And it's funny, when I was at their house pre-Pandy, he's like, Clone Troopers are the best Star Wars ever, you know? And I'm just like, you say that so confidently, young Padawan. You know, you say it so confidently, but it's funny, he believes it. And it's because they had how many episodes to iterate and get it right. They had time, you know, they had the years to grow up with it. It wasn't like we spent more time waiting for a Star Wars movie than we did watching Star Wars content, really. You know, like, yeah, I have VHS, but not everyone had a VHS copy of Star Wars. You know, like in the early 80s, you maybe got it from a friend or your uncle brought it over. It wasn't that easy to get a hold of. And they didn't have to wait. He grew up every year for like 7 years and got a whole season of fucking Clone Wars, you know, and just grew up with it. So that's where the lessons learned, I feel, are like, you better give people the time to grow with these characters, because what if Mando was like 3 films and like the Grogu, the Luke thing happens in the second film? You'd be relying on nostalgia for that to make more sense than we also went on 12 to 20 something adventures with these characters before we got to this point too.
Yeah.
You know,
If it was a film, the first season would have ended with, okay, kid, you could stay with me. The
Right.
first film. The second film would have been like, now you're going to Luke Skywalker, and then the third film would have been him returning. And
and it would feel play by the numbers because of the small amount of time that you have to compress all that into.
Well, and
You
look
know?
at the audience too, though. So much means so much to so many different people, and the emphasis on those things is spread around. Like me, I do kind of go in the George Lucas side of things, where acting isn't the most important thing to me. I am with you. I would like, and it's a little bit weird when you watch the prequels after watching the sequels, like a ton. Then you watch it, you're like, why is it so wooden? You know, it didn't actually bother me as much as it bothers me now. You know what I mean? It bothers me more than it ever did.
I agree. I will watch the Phantom Menace before I'll watch the sequels.
Mm-hmm.
Call me crazy. I love the film. I don't know why, because I loved it, and then I went out, and then around, I don't know, man, like around The Last Jedi or so. It wasn't because I saw the movie, walked out mad. It wasn't like that. I actually cried. I love a lot about The Last Jedi.
Signaling.
I know, right? I just remember at some point I was like, I really love the design of the films.
Yeah.
You know, and so then I go back and I'm like, you know, I just don't take it so fucking, this is the most important thing in the world to me anymore. I take it as this is a piece of work that was made in a period of time, and it's nothing exists like it. You know, like nothing exists like the Phantom Menace. Show me another film like it. Like it doesn't exist.
No,
like it's totally unique. And yeah, I'm just, I don't know. And I think Williams's score is probably my favorite out of all the things. I mean, it has so many motifs and themes, and the Duel of the Fates it's a badass piece of fucking music that's up there with the Imperial March and does a completely different thing. You know, a completely different thing. But I don't know, man. No.
Really quickly, Bootsy, my buddy Bootsy, as I like to call him, has a question for you. And you can answer it, or you don't have to, but it says, hey, Rob, would you agree that Uncanny X-Men Annual #9 and New Mutants Special Edition #1 by Arthur Adams are two of the best comics ever? I do. One thumb up your nose, one thumb up your butt, and one thumb in your mouth. And then I think a little book, maybe.
I get the full Matrix. Right? They're in the pods. They're filled through every hole. Watch the scene.
So is he
Arthur
right?
Adams, a brilliant artist. The problem is you only got one issue a year from him. You know. That being said, I'll take that one issue over 12 issues of nonsense. So you know, but Arthur Adams, is one of the best artists of all time. So.
And then really quickly at the end, Ben says, let me guess, there are sides using this against their sequel arguments. It's the same argument played out over again, cringe and eye roll, same story, different day. No, actually, everybody saw eye to eye today. We all came to a very deep understanding, and all sides are pretty much good. Lucas and Marcia patched things up after all of these years. We're now friends.
Took me 10 years to pay that off. You know what that was like? I had to make Howard the fucking Duck. All right.
Like, forever.
Yeah, I mean,
I put duck boobs in a film to pay that off. All right. The bounties on my, they have a bounty.
I wonder if anybody's ever going to ask her, hey, George, hey, Marcia, when you took half of the Lucasfilm fortune, and they kind of had to make Star Wars movies that needed to be highly profitable after that. Things work. Do you think maybe that crying maybe you shouldn't have cried because you were doing pretty good. You have a lot of
people
money.
don't know her last name is actually Kit. It's Marcia Kit. And then I took all the money and I said, I could do it better. And I don't have to do anything because I'm Marcia Lucas.
The muse has become the artist.
The third artist has appeared. Me.
So
Marcia Kennedy. Marcia Film.
Marcia Law. Oh,
we're laying down the martial law.
All I hear all day long at school is how great Marcia is at this, or how wonderful Marcia did that. Marcia,